Okay, so now we have the blue cards. Let's start here with Aven Surveyor. It is blue 2 Bird Scout. It has flying. Whenever Aven Surveyor enters the battlefield, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on Aven Surveyor, or return target creature to its owner's hand. I'm okay with this card. It's either like a 3/3 for 5 flying, which isn't that good, or it's a bad cloud skate that you can't suspend. I think the versatility of it makes it so that you'll play it. I'm not going to be like crazy happy about it at double blue 3, but I think it'll probably make most of my decks where I can support it. And I like these modal cards because you're going to get something bad for what you're paying, but the fact that you can put it in 2 modes is great. It works a la like the charms, where you have multiple things that you can do with it. Like, you wouldn't play most of the charms if that's all they did, but the fact that it can do like 3 things means it's playable. Enhanced Awareness. 1 blue 4 for an instant common. Draw 3 cards, then discard a card. I like this card probably better than We Fate. Even though you're getting the same advantage out of it, it's nice to be able to draw 3 and then take something that's in your hand and just it's gone. If I'm more controlly, I'll play this. If I'm more aggressive, I won't. I think it's really that simple. Drawing cards is just not a bad thing, especially when you can get 3 of them as an instant for 5. So, Fascination. Now, this actually is a fascinating card. You're going to choose 1. Either each player draws X cards, or each player mills X cards. Puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. This... I want this card to be good, but I don't think it is. Like, maybe in some form of like a delve deck. I mean, if it were an instant, I'd like it, because at least then you'd be the first one able to use your X cards. But I mean, if you're drawing, then your opponent probably is going to be finding something good as well, and they'll be the first one that can use it. If you're milling, you're still like spending your turn to mill. So unless you're... I mean, I could see maybe bringing this in out of the board against like a Sultai deck or somebody who is already kind of running through their library and using this essentially as a finisher. There's like, oh, you've milled a whole bunch? Well, here, mill a whole bunch more. But, man, outside of that, I wouldn't main deck this card. I know the allure of draw X cards is there, and that's a pretty alluring statement. But for me, no thank you. Cloud Form, another one of the form cards here. Blue 1. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, it becomes an aura. We know what the form cards do. It manifests, and this one gives flying and hexproof. I don't hate a 2/2 flying hexproof. This is where you could potentially put other auras. You can make it bigger. Things that have hexproof are nice. I mean, it's not that huge of a body, and it's not really anything other than an attacker or a blocker. But I don't hate hexproof, and I sure as heck don't hate flying. I think like most of the forms, if you can support the mana cost, it's good, and you should play it. Frostwalker, 1 white 1, excuse me, gosh, 1 blue 1 for a 4/1 elemental uncommon. So a 4/1 for 2 is pretty silly. When it becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. The old phantasmal ability. When you can get ferocious for 2 mana, that's pretty good. Heck, they may not be able to do anything about this for a while. I mean, a 4/1 is probably going to die the most removal anyway. So that ability is almost not relevant. It just depends on, like, do they maybe have something on the board that can target it, where they're not having to burn a card in their hand. And then even if they have to spend like a bad card, like say a crippling chill or a defiant strike, something that cantrips, they actually won't get to draw, because when the spell resolves, Frostwalker will be gone, and since it has no target, the spell will fizzle, so you won't draw a card. So, and note that if you try to kill one yourself, that if you're doing it with a cantrip, you're not going to draw a card. I think there's more than enough upside to this guy. This guy's a 4/1 for 2. If you're on the play and you drop this on turn 2, there's a really decent shot he's going to hit for at least 4 once, and then he's going to try to hit for 4 again, and then he's going to trade out with a morph. So this guy's going to get in damage and kill a creature. I think there's a lot of upside here. I would maybe consider boarding it out against any deck that had a lot of like on-board targeting abilities. But even then, maybe not. And especially if you're looking for Ferocious. Being able to get Ferocious for 2 mana is really nice. This is definitely teamer-oriented. A Jeskai Infiltrator, 1 blue 2 for a rare 2/3 human monk. When Jeskai Infiltrator can't be blocked as long as you control no other creatures. Okay, well, we like unblockable. We've paid 3 mana for a 2/2 unblockable before. This one's a little more limiting. But when it deals combat damage to a player, exile it and the top card of your library in a face-down pile. Shuffle that pile, then manifest those cards. Okay. Somebody asked me at one point, why do you exile it face down? What is relevant about that? The relevancy of it is so that nobody knows that which one is your Jeskai Infiltrator. Because good chance you may swing again, and maybe you swing with both of them into one creature. And they don't know which is which. So maybe they're blocking the Infiltrator, maybe they're blocking the Manifest. And so maybe if they block the Manifest, he flips up and does it again. I don't hate this card. I think it's one of those cards that's going to be pretty decent. I mean, in a stalled board state where you've got creatures, your opponent's got creatures, and nobody can really break through, this guy's terrible. But early on, he is a 2/3 for 3, so it blocks morphs. If it's the only thing you've got there, it can be nice. So if you play this on turn 3, on turn 4 you swing, you manifest, and then you can play a 4-drop. So you can have 3 creatures at the end of turn 4 pretty reasonably here. I think it's gonna make my deck. It's good. I don't think it's bomb-alicious, as the kids might say. I'm sure there's kids that say that. But I think it's solid, and it's a high pick and draft. I don't know if it's necessarily a first pick, but I think it'll in that 2 to 4 slot, maybe 1 in a weak pack. Jeskai Runemark, 1 blue 2. We have an Aura common. This is one of those Runemark cards. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2. It's flying as long as you control a red or white permanent. I don't really like creature enchantments again. Now, to kind of qualify my statement there, if your opponent is running a very creature-heavy deck with very little removal that you see, I could definitely see boarding in something like this. Like, this can break a game out. You're in that stalled board state where there's a bunch of 2/2s and 3/3s on the board. All of a sudden, you slap this on something, and now you have a 5/5 flyer. Rawr. But I feel like you're setting yourself up way too much to get 2 for 1 on these things. So unless you have a lot of things involving having auras or being able to bring back auras or things like that, I don't like it. Jeskai Sage, 1 blue 1. We have a 1/1 Prowess common. When it dies, draw a card. It's pretty meh for me. 1/1s don't do much in this environment unless they have Death Touch. Dying and drawing a card is nice and all, but like, kind of rather do something better with the mana to begin with. Prowess is nice, but I know some people are going to be tempted by the draw a card part. I wouldn't be so much. A Lotus Path Djinn is 1 blue 3 for a 2/3 flying prowess. It's a common. A 2/3 flyer for 4. I think that's solid. The prowess is good. It's unexciting, but flyers are typically good. I mean, if you tack 2 mana onto this and tack +2/+2 onto it, you have a card that people play in limited. I think this card could be fine in a world where there's a lot of like 2/3 and 3/3s. Like, the prowess can be scary enough to get past those. I think this will turn out to be more of a bluff card than necessarily like the prowess being useful. Is like you attack into like a Sultai Scavenger, and they're like, "Yeah, I'll take it. Can't do much there," because they're scared of the prowess. It's not fantastic, but it's definitely playable. Meringue River Prowler, 1 blue 2 for a 2/1. Okay. It can't block or be blocked. Well, I like the can't be blocked part. I don't really like the can't block part. You may cast Meringue River Prowler from your graveyard as long as you control a black or green permanent. Oh, now we're talking. I mean, it's not a good creature. It can't block. So if you're losing, this thing's awful. But if you're looking for a way of winning a game, this card's like on a stalemate. This card's really, really good. It can be milled out somehow, like scout the borders, things like that. Something that just puts the cards directly into your graveyard and then cast from there. I could see playing this card definitely. I don't like the can't block part. Like if your opponent's really aggressive, I don't like this card because you're gonna look at it and go, "This card's garbage." Like you're not even giving them the chance to trade with it. You're gonna take two because sometimes you attack and you're like, "Please block, please block, please block," and this guy they're not gonna block. I think I would situationally. I think for the most part, if I'm in the colors, I am going to start it. But if I see my opponent is playing, let me qualify that a little bit. I think in sealed I'll start it, and in draft I won't, unless I am the aggressive deck. But even then, if I'm the aggressive deck, do I really want to play 3 for a 2/1? The fact that it's indestructible, basically, because you can keep casting it over and over and over. Is nice against control-y decks. Draft tends to be a little quicker, so I'd more than likely board this card and bring it in against slower decks. Sealed tends to be slower, so I'm more likely to main deck it and then pull it against fast decks. Mindscour Dragon is double blue 4 for a 4/4 flying dragon. So we have our uncommon dragon series again. When Mindscour Dragon deals combat damage to an opponent, target player puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. I like this card as a 4/4 flyer for 6. Like, it's a little weak on that side, especially for blue. So I don't love it. I actually don't like its ability very much at all. Like, against a deck that's running Sultai or anything that remotely looks like Sultai, they're going to be like, "Thanks for the free mana, dummy. I'll take it." But it's really hard to argue with a 4/4 flyer. I don't think this one's going to make most of my decks, especially if you're in those colors, because flying's probably not an issue for you too much. So if you need the flyer, play it. Otherwise, it's pretty expensive for a 4/4 flyer in that color. And again, the ability, like, you're just not going to want to attack against a Sultai deck. So board it out there if you're playing it. Misfire Adept, 1 blue 3 for a 3/3 prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature gains flying until end of turn. Actually, I just had a comment. So this is why we keep chat up. Because I try to do a good job at looking at all the angles on the card. I'm really good at thinking outside the box, I think. But I do miss things from time to time, especially when I'm trying to prepare for a whole thing. So we have somebody in the chat who has just mentioned that it is target player who's being milled. So if you're Sultai, you can mill yourself. Makes it a little better. I still am not thrilled with a 4/4 flyer for 6. But I think I have to qualify my, if your opponent's playing Sultai, board it out statement. So that's actually not going to be as relevant. So thank you to the chat. This is why we like to do it live. People catch stuff that I miss. Misfire Adept, 1 blue 3, Human Monk, uncommon 3/3. Whenever you cast non-creature spell, target creature gains flying till end of turn. I know I just repeated myself, but since we went back. Yes, please. Yes, please. This is one of those prowessy abilities that is good to trigger twice. Where something like a Seeker of the Way, and triggering it twice is useless because double lifelink is useless. Being able to cast a non-creature spell and then give something flying until end of turn is great. Hell, he can do it to himself. If it's the only creature you've got, you're like, Defiant Strike, swing for 5 in the air. It's very tricksy. It's great on offense, great on defense. It's great in your deck. Play it, play it, play it. I mean, it's a hill giant at the least. Yeah, play it. Monastery Siege, 1 blue, 2. For an enchantment, as Monastery Siege enters the battlefield, choose cons or dragons. Cons, at the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card, then discard a card. Dragons, spells your opponent casts that target you or a permanent you control cost 2 more to cast. This is definitely one of the sieges I don't like very much. I think the Dragon's ability is just generally bad. Because unless you're really aggressive, that ability probably isn't going to be relevant. The Con's ability is... It's okay. If you're heavy Sultai, I could definitely see this being played. It just doesn't do a lot on its own, and I feel like it's going to take a couple of turns before it becomes relevant. So this may just not be a card that you want to see late game. Especially because if you have no cards in your hand, you're basically going to draw a card and put it into your yard. That's bad, because if you draw your bomb, that sucks. I don't love it. I'm probably not going to play it much. Neutralizing Blast. 1 blue, 1 for a instant. Counter target multicolored spell. This got a little bit worse with Fate Reforged, because there's not that many multicolor spells here. There's 10. But there's quite a few in cons. I don't think you'll catch me main decking this. It's a sideboard card. When your opponent has a bunch, like they've gone 5 color and they have lots of stuff. But even then you have to be careful, because a lot of their multicolor spells could just be morphs. And there's not much you can do about those. Can't counter once they're in. Rakasha's Disdain, 1 blue, 2 for a common instant. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 for each card in your graveyard. I don't like this card in the least. Like, even if you have a bunch of cards in your graveyard and this essentially becomes counter target spell, it's bad early and then it's good late. And they might still just have a way of paying for it. This won't be in my deck. I also tend to not like counterspells as much, so there's kind of that disclaimer. But I just feel like counters sometimes don't. You're just gonna be sitting on it. You're gonna be like, I wish this was some form of business. I wish this was something that could kill their creature, or something that I could use to apply pressure. No, I'm just going to have to sit back and wait for them to do something. Oh, and I need to keep mana open at the same time. It's a lot better in constructed than it is in limited. The concept of counters in general, not necessarily this card. But if they had something nasty, maybe. Reality Shift, 1 blue, 1 instant. Exile target creature. Its controller manifests the top card of his or her library. Blue tends to be real bad with their removal, and this is an example of how blue tends to remove its creatures. I guess I don't hate it. It's an instant. You're going to replace whatever it is with a 2/2. You could theoretically do it to yourself, like block before damage, exile my own creature, make a 2/2. It's got some versatility to it. I think I'm definitely playing the card if I have it. But I guess I'm not happy about playing it. Like, it's kind of weird to explain because, like, it's going to make my deck almost every time. But there's going to be a part of me that's going to be a little sad every time it ends up in my hand. Refocus. 1 blue 1, instant. Untap target creature. Draw a card. That's a great combat trick. It is a great combat trick. Like, you have to be scared of it. Dragon Scale Boon untaps it and puts 2 counters on it, but it costs 2 mana more. This only costs 2. Can just straight untap something and draw a card. There's definitely, as is noted in the chat, there are a lot of shenanigans to be had with Refocus. You should be playing this card. It's a good cantrip, if nothing else. Renowned Weaponsmith. 1 blue 1 for a 1/3. It's a human artificer. I think artificer is the way you say it. Tap to add 2 mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. 1 blue tap. Search your library for a card named Heartpiercer Bow or Vial of Dragonfire. Reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So if you caught the video, you saw what I was doing. If you're just on audio, it sounded like static there. I dislike. Like, why would you play this in limited for the most part? There's really not good artifacts. Like, why do you want to go get your Heartpiercer Bow? Why? It's terrible. And the second ability, or the second card, Vial of Dragonfire, well, once we know what Vial of Dragonfire is, it might be great. We don't even know what the card is. It's probably from the next set, which this is the first time I've ever seen Wizards do this. Ever. They've basically spoiled the name of a card from the next set in the previous set. This card's awful. Don't play it. Qualification: if you're really low on creatures and your opponent's Mardu Rush, you might play it for a 1/3 body. But God, you are crying on the inside, bawling if you have to do that. Rite of Undoing. 1 blue 4 for an instant, uncommon, has Delve. Return target non-land permanent you control and target non-land permanent you don't control to their owner's hands. If you're having to pay 5 for this, it is not good. If you're paying 1 for this, it is fantastic. Even paying 2, this is one of those self-bounce things. It's a pretty good combat trick. It just matters on how much you can do with Delve. And that's really long and the short of it. How often are you able to cast this spell for like 1 or 2 mana? So I think once you even get to 3 mana, it's questionable. Anything more than 3, and it's going to usually not be worth it. So if you're Delve-centric, or you have a lot of things you necessarily want to bounce of your own. Sage Eye Avengers is double blue 4 for a 4/5. It is a Djinn Monk, and it's rare. Has prowess. Whenever Sage Eye Avengers attacks, you may return target creature to its owner's hand if its power is less than Sage Eye Avengers' power. It's definitely a rare, like ability-wise. And I keep going back and forth on this one a lot. 6 mana creatures should be bigger than 4/5, and they should do more than this. like, I'm probably gonna play it if I have it, but I'm probably not gonna draft it highly. Like, it's gonna be one of those, oh, I got this 5th or 6th pick, I'll take it. But it's just not bomb-malicious. It's just not really... Man, I use that word twice now, one podcast. It's not... It's just not exciting. Its ability is okay. There'll be situations where it'll be awesome, but like, you can't necessarily return their fatty. I'm meh on it. Shifting loyalties, 1 blue 5. Exchange control of 2 target permanents that share a card type. Love the ability. I think the ability's awesome. I think the cost is terrible. 6 mana? Like 6 mana to take your best creature, but I have to give you one of mine? Back in my day, Sonny, we used to pay 4 and 5 mana for that. And we didn't have to give them something else, and we liked it that way. I don't... This is going to be another one of those, like, my opponent's going to have something nasty. I've not seen anything where you're going to have something you're going to want to give your opponent. Like, this isn't some Illusions donate thing going on. I don't like it. I think it's too expensive. Make it cost 4 and maybe we'll play it. At 6, I think it's too high. And it's a sorcery. Make it an instant and we'll play it. Shuyun, the Silent Tempest. We have a legendary creature, human monk, rare. It's a 3/2. So we already have a 3/2 for 2. Or 3/2 for 3, I'm sorry. With prowess. I'm already liking this. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may pay a hybrid mana red-white. 2 of them. If you do, target creature gains double strike until end of turn? Huh? Bomb, 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 bomb. Bomb, 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 bomb. Like, this card's going to kill people out of nowhere. And it won't be out of nowhere. It'll be like it's going to make people very, very scared. I think we're going to see this guy in Constructed. It's funny. Somebody in chat was just saying that. I think this guy is going to get played in Constructed. He's scary. He's very scary. He is a reason to play Jeskai. Or at least blue-red or blue-white. Sultai Skullkeeper is a 1 blue 1 for a 2/1 Naga Shaman. When Skullkeeper enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Suppose he's a fine Sultai card. He's a 2/1 for 1 if you really need the delve. He's not exciting. He's kind of an enabler. He's maybe a 23rd. Maybe he doesn't make your deck. I think that's... often I think he'll find you won't make your deck. But he will sometimes. Supplant Form. Blue 4. Instant rare. Return target creature to its owner's hand. You put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that creature. The fact that this is an instant is what makes it so great. Being able to do this mid-combat, being able to do this end of turn. You can return your own fatty to make a copy of it. So you'll have two of them. You can recast. It's obviously going to be better when you bounce your opponent's creature. I'm playing it as long as I can, again, support the double blue, which hopefully by 6 mana you'll be able to. And there's always that caveat on things that are double mana. Like, you have to be able to support it. Temporal Trespass. Blue, 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 8. Let me just take a second to digest that. Blue, 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 ocho. 11 mana. Sorcery. This better be damn good for 11 mana. It's a mythic. It delves. Okay. And no, I have read the card before. I don't want to make it sound like I'm just reading the card for the first time. It delves. So the 8's not such a big deal. The triple blue is a big deal. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Temporal Trespass. I don't like it, guys. Triple blue's really hard. Really hard. Like, take the 8 out of it. There was actually, real quick, there was a rules question involving the last one where you bounce to get a token. The token is under your control regardless of what you bounce. So I want to make sure everyone does understand that. Whether you bounce your creature or bounce your opponent's creature, the token is yours. Yeah, the triple blue on Temporal Trespass is just going to be, I think, hard for most decks. If you're heavy delve and heavy blue, it's okay. I think this is far more of a weird legacy vintage card than a limited card. I'm not going to play it. Mythic or no. Tauren Elemental, 1 blue 4. For creature elemental, it is a 3/5 flyer. Okay, 3/5 flyer for 5. I'm okay with that. Pretty good there. When it attacks, tap all creatures defending player controls. Oh, I'm really good with that. That is some aggro goodness right there. Awesome! Thank you for the follow. For those who are catching mid-podcast, that sound effect means somebody has followed us on Twitch, where we are live, and you should join us because we like doing this live and you get to be part of the chat. On Tauren Elemental, for 3 and 2 hybrid mana of green-black, you can put Tauren Elemental from exile onto the battlefield tapped. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So that's the thing to remember, is that this card has to be exiled. It's a mythic, so it's pretty decent for a mythic. It has to be exiled to bring it back, not in the graveyard. So it's got to find its way, like you delve it out or something. I mean, Sultai definitely has their ways of making sure that this gets exiled, but there is that extra step. That said, I'm playing this card, like, pretty much regardless of my mana base. Like, if nothing else, he's a 5 casting cost 3/5 that blows a stalemate wide freaking open. So, gimme. Whisk Away. 1 blue 2 for an instant. Put target attacking or blocking creature on top of its owner's library. I don't hate this at all. This is a very blue ability. 3 mana for an instant to put things on top of the library. I mean, it does have to be a little conditional of being attacking or blocking. But that said, yeah, this is a solid combat trick. it's going to, if I'm playing blue, I'm going to be playing Whisk Away. Will of the Naga. A double blue for Delve. It's an instant common. Tap up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step. I mean, at 6, this is obviously bad. At 2, it's great. I think most of the time you're going to want to be using it. It's probably going to be closer to 2 than 6. I like the card. I might board it out against super aggressive decks because I might end up having to pay 5 or 6 for it, and that's too much mana. But if your opponent is remotely slow, it's a great card. Right into Being. 1 blue, 2 sorcery. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Manifest one of those cards. Then put the other on top or bottom of your library. This is essentially a sorcery, get a 2/2 and scry 2. I mean, it's not quite scry 2, but it's kind of close. In that basically one of them is going on bottom, no matter what. And the other one can either go on top or bottom. I think it's a fine card. I think it'll help a little bit with getting to what you need. Like if your mana flooded, this is a good way of burning a land. If your mana screwed, it might be a good way of finding a land. I mean, it's basic library manipulation. It's fine at 3 mana. I think I'll play it at 3 mana. It's not something I'm going to bend over backwards for, but it's reasonably solid. Okay, we are now at the end of blue. We are going to take another commercial break, and we will be back soon. You are listening to the Gamers Dome.